Prime Minister Modi arrives tonight in Uzbekistan to attend the two-day Shanghai Cooperation Organization meet. Prime Minister Modi, before leaving for the meet, shared his thoughts on what he was looking forward to and the exchanges that would take place on topical, regional, international issues with the other member nations. This will be the first bilateral face-to-face meeting of Prime Minister Modi with Vladimir Putin since the Ukraine-Russia war. That's not all. This will be the first time Prime Minister Modi and Chinese President Xi Jinping are in a room. So essentially, why this whole SCO meet, which is happening in Samarkand, Uzbekistan, is important is because you will have Shahbaz Sharif of Pakistan, you will have, of course, Prime Minister Narendra Modi, you will have Xi Jinping, and you will have Vladimir Putin, all face-to-face. It's not very clear whether there will be a bilateral between Russia and India. No word yet whether there will be a bilateral between India and China. So a lot that could develop over the next couple of days. Let me first go across to my colleague Srinjoy Chaudhary, who filed this report.
Yes, Prime Minister has left. He should be reaching at 10 o'clock. So it's not clear whether he will be there for the dinner where Xi Jinping and Shahbaz Sharif, the leaders of China and Pakistan, will be there. But of course, tomorrow is when the summit is, and they will be in the same room at the same time. So there will definitely bound to be, they will meet each other. But when it comes to sit down of summit meetings, then very clearly three are on the agenda already. After lunch tomorrow, the first meeting is with Vladimir Putin, the Russian president. We have a little of the agenda as well. They will discuss how to cooperate better in the G20, which is in November, and also later in the UN General Assembly and Security Council. There are two more meetings that are also scheduled. One is with host, the president of Uzbekistan, and the other is with Ibrahim Raisi, the Iranian president.
Now, Suresh, Goel, former ambassador, joining us on the show. Maroof Raza, consultant and strategic affairs expert, also with us on the show. Welcome to both of you, and thank you so much for speaking with us this evening. Ambassador Goel, first off, why is the SCO important? And I'm going to start with a very basic question that people have been asking. Does India need to be part of this grouping? Considering our current situation with a lot of the member states and how our positioning has also changed over the last decades?
That's a very good question, Tamanna. Now, is SCO important to us?
Yeah.
If Afghanistan is important to us, if Central Asia is important to us, if our neighborhood security is important to us and the stability in the area is important to us, I would say the SCO is as important to us in that case as Indo-Pacific is, or as the recently established Quad in the Middle East state. Therefore, I would say SCO is important. India has to play a role in the SCO. It's a different thing, as you said, that yes, most of the countries in the region, but not most of the countries, I'm sorry to say, but particularly China, Pakistan, to some extent Iran, and others, may not be exactly on the same wavelength as India is. But that doesn't mean that it is not important to us. One last point in that connection. SCO started as a kind of a counterweight to, not counterweight, but as a result of disintegration of the Soviet Union. And then Russia and China, they were looking for a kind of a regional counterweight to the USA. And the grouping in 1995 came as a result of that. And I think that remains. Even today, SCO looks itself as a kind of increasing counterweight to USA influence.
You know, that actually clarifies why this question is arising. And yes. Maroof, of course, I'll come to you on why SCO is important. But let me add that context. People today are asking that since India is pretty much welcome at all tables, right? And our relationship with the West, with the United States, is perhaps the best it has been in a very long time. Do we still fit in? Do we still need to be part of the SCO? Do we need to look at it in a very different strategic manner?
That's for me.
Yes, Maroof, that's for you.
Okay. I mean, the question that you asked, Ambassador Goel, and what you're asking me, they are really the crux of the matter, that the SCO summit and the meetings, why we are getting involved. Further to what the ambassador said, there are 2 or 3 points we need to understand. You want to be a global player, then you have to be in all important forums. Whether you are going to dramatically alter the narrative there, or whether your presence itself is seen as significant enough. And our presence is significant, and I'll tell you why. Because firstly, anything that happens in Asia, it is very much our strategic playground. We cannot allow Asia to be hijacked by China and its lackeys. The second thing is that we have been steadily increasing our geostrategic and other diplomatic investments in Central Asia and Afghanistan. Even in Afghanistan, outside the Western world, we have remained a very large contributor in terms of not just money, but in terms of actually tangible projects. The parliament building, the schools, the hospitals, roads, dams, etc. And Afghanistan is very much an influential aspect of SCO discussions. Because what happens in Afghanistan could have a spillover effect in the Central Asian countries, as we have seen in the past. The third thing is that we are one of the few countries that have been positively engaging with Iran, despite American sanctions. And Iran, again, is very much there in the SCO meetings. It could become a permanent member soon. It is providing the pathways, the North-South corridor for trade through Central Asia, where the SCO summit is taking place, right up to Russia. Some containers have reached us. Some of our stuff has gone there. And it is an important way to break the landlocked entity of Central Asia. Central Asia is really where the SCO narrative has come to center on. Though we would be taking on the leadership of SCO this year onwards. So the next year's summit will be in India on SCO. And importantly, there is a lot of goodwill for India in SCO. So SCO is also Central Asia, where it's happening, is a meeting ground of 2 other landmass giants, that is Russia and China. So, America, despite the influence it wields, is really a peripheral player in Asia. It's in the high seas. It's not in Central Asia, not in China, not in Russia, but India, being seen by some as a very close friend of America, can also make both an input and take back inputs from what really were the indoor discussions there. So therefore, our being there is important. And finally, if you've seen, Mr. Modi has been going from the Indo-Pacific summits to I2U2 summits and to meetings with Mr. Biden and into SCO. So we are everywhere. The only shortcoming we have is that our foreign office is woefully ill-staffed or short of the manpower India needs to play a bigger role. Do you know that our foreign service has less people than Singapore?
No, yeah, that's an important observation. But I would say that we should leave that more in-depth discussion for another day. SCO was also interesting for me to debate and go into the details because of the statements that have come out from India and the amount of time the Prime Minister is spending there. Ambassador Goel, how do you look at this? So all of the other leaders have reached yesterday. Prime Minister Modi has left this evening. He's skipping that first introductory sort of dinner that they will have, and he has very specific meetings lined up. It's going to be a shorter trip. Is that because of a hectic schedule, or is it also an understanding that we are going to be involved as much as it suits us, considering the kind of people in that room? We have had issues with China. We've had ongoing issues with China. We have ongoing issues with Pakistan. And then, of course, there is Mr. Putin, who, there will be a face-to-face after Ukraine.
I'm going to be very, very upfront on this, Tamanna. I don't know why but somehow Prime Minister has got an impression that Samarkand meeting of SCO is important for India only as far as bilaterals are concerned. Meeting with Putin, meeting with Raisi, and I hope not meeting with Xi Jinping. I don't know, but I'm saying hope not. So I think the point really is there is a perception in India that SCO is important because it provides a platform for important bilateral meetings. But I would think that we need to look at SCO in a different manner. SCO is a platform which was established by the initiative of China in 2001, and China is a competitor for influence in the region. Please mark it. If China gains in ascendancy in Central Asia, the path to our connectivity to Central Asia and beyond is effective. And if India wants to play a global role, as we aspire to be a global player, then we have to have our influence in the region. Please do remember that the Mughal Empire came from Central Asia. Please do remember that our trade routes to Europe pass through Central Asia. Central Asia is important to us and we should not be giving it up. And from that point of view, SCO by itself is important to us, particularly when the subject before it are going to be Ukraine. It will be discussed definitely. Armenia, Azerbaijan is going to be discussed. Terrorism, which is so close to our heart, is going to be discussed. Therefore, SCO by itself is important. On the bilateral front, I think Prime Minister Modi is counting on the meeting with Putin and Iran, and I think maybe Xi Jinping if he wants. But we need to go beyond those bilateral meetings.
You know, Maroof, that big question: should India and China engage? Should Prime Minister Modi sit down and speak with Xi Jinping? And the context, of course, of this is the disengagement, the complete disengagement of China from the Gogra hot springs just a few days ago. Is that enough to warrant a face-to-face meeting?
See, that's the tricky part. The problem is that India has made it clear that it's not going to just settle for these cosmetic disengagements. And these are cosmetic disengagements, and probably the Chinese they're very smart at the whole negotiation tactics. There is a book by one of the sort of colleagues of Ambassador Goel, Foreign Secretary Mr. Goel, which talks of the long game. The Chinese play the long game. And in the long game, they judge your reactions to any little tidbits they give in your direction. So I don't think we should get terribly excited. I have myself, years ago as a journalist, been part of some of these summit events, and I've seen the whole focus is on bilateral meetings, not on the summit or the conference outcomes per se. And so therefore, our press tends to go in a tizzy if Modi were to shake hands with Mr. Shahbaz Sharif or Xi Jinping. But that doesn't solve the problem, damn it. You've got to understand the problem is very complicated. You think China is going to give Aksai Chin away? I'll bet my name and my reputation on the fact they will not. How you can try the Krishna Menon tactics of trying to talk them out of it, but they're not going to listen to you. And so is the importance of, I would say, nobody takes my advice, but I would say that really Mr. Modi should focus on Iran. Mr. Modi should focus on the SCO countries, and Mr. Modi should focus on keeping his relationship with Mr. Putin going. To hell with what the world says about Putin, but at the end of the day, if you go into statistics, Putin is probably moving in the direction of having a good laugh at them with the kind of money he's making with oil sales, with the industrial output that Russia has registered in the last 3 months. When the West they talk of Russia and its economy going into a spiral of recession, but it's probably going to be the other way around.
Oh, the last couple of weeks have shown that, where Europe is bracing for a cold winter with gas prices through the roof, and Russia, the ruble has recovered sharply. Having said that, what do you think will be the key takeaway for you, Ambassador Goel? What will you be looking for? And what do you think the focus should be for India? Do you agree with Maroof when he says that our focus should be Iran?
Yes, Iran should be our focus. Regrettably, we have lost a lot of ground on Iran, not because of what we did, but because Iran also is hedging its bets on various things. But the point is that it's very, very difficult to predict any kind of outcomes of what we should be looking for from SCO. I think at this time, basically, let me put it this way, that in our foreign policy strategy, which is actually now geared towards big countries, we seem to have really lost track of what is happening in our neighborhood, particularly Central Asia. And I think it will be useful to have this occasion to know what they are thinking. We look at Kazakhstan purely in terms of oil or trade. We look at Kyrgyzstan as a country from which the Mughals came, but historical connections, but I have not really seen anything significant happening with Kyrgyzstan in the recent times. We look at Turkmenistan, sorry, not Turkmenistan, but Tajikistan and Uzbekistan as kind of historical emotional ties. We need to build a very, very substantive ties with them. And we need to know how we can get these countries once again close to India the way they used to be earlier. So I think that itself will be a big thing really to do. Therefore, I would say we need to understand what actually is a role that we can now play in Central Asia, having lost a bit of traction. Yes.
Quick point from you, Maroof. Yes, please go ahead.
Yeah, further to the knowledgeable Ambassador Goel, I just want to say that it's important for us, if we are really looking for a serious outcome of the SCO summit, we need a greater commitment to confront those countries that sponsor terrorism. It's not just good enough to have a mechanism to discuss terrorism. I think it's a joke that after SCO being around for several years, they still don't understand what is terrorism. Either they're terribly dumb or they couldn't be bothered to read the writing on the wall. And I think that's the latter. The problem is that Pakistan's been getting away at every forum, and Pakistan's diplomacy as a counter to India's efforts is far more effective. They have gone and got themselves the American sanction for another lot of F-16 aircrafts to fight terrorism. God's sake. Anybody with any sense of military understanding would know that F-16s don't knock off terrorism.
But Maroof, may I talk to you about the bigger picture? I agree, Pakistan is always a pain point, and we should put up the point very clearly that they're harboring terrorism, etc. But for us right now, isn't the focus balancing our exceedingly improving and really good relations with the US and our relations with Russia? The way I look at it, that meeting with Putin, the photo ops that are going to come out of there, is the most crucial thing from here. The West is going to be watching.
You see, the United States is a victim of its sense of delusion. And it tries to get everybody else on board with that delusionary thing.
Be that as it may, that is a balancing act we'll have to keep.
Let me just complete. And so therefore, they pump everybody with their information and propaganda, which, as you step back as a historian and you look at all the evidence that comes out, they're not necessarily telling you all the truth. That's one. Secondly, the Americans have been constantly telling us they are our strategic partners, but in the same breath, people in Pentagon and Foggy Bottom, that's their Foreign Service headquarters, have also made a statement that we cannot rule out the possibility that Pakistan is still a very important non-NATO military ally of theirs. Yeah. Aren't they ashamed? Aren't they ashamed of having a non-NATO military ally, which is the epicenter of terrorism, at least in Asia, if not the world? And we hear these pontifications. I am telling you with a reasonable sense of authority and responsibility that find me people in South Block who are not, for a variety of reasons, sympathetic to the Americans, apart from their own personal agendas, and I'll find you a unicorn.
Okay. I'm completely out of time, but Ambassador Goel, I don't want to deny you a last word. Please promise to keep it pithy and short. Yes.
Maroof, you are confusing the US State Department with the CIA. I hope that you don't need to say that the CIA is a foreign service. But anyway,
sir, वो सब चचेरे भाई.
Achha, I have to wrap, but yes.
A small comment.
Yeah.
The thing is that the terrorism and the relationships have been, as I said earlier, they should not be hostage to big country mindset, number one. Number two, I think SCO, the terrorism fight is there because of Pakistan and Afghanistan, but SCO is not an effective forum to discuss terrorism. It is a forum where China and Russia have been able to impact on the relations through trade, through supplies of energy.
Right.
And I think we need to focus on building economic relations.
Okay. I cannot come back to you, Maroof. I'm completely out of time. I have to wrap here, but I want to thank both of you for joining us. I think we should pick this back up again once we see what's actually come out of the SCO. That would be fascinating.
Maybe tomorrow.
Yes.
Maybe tomorrow.
So let's revisit that. Thank you so much for your time.
Bye.